How long are you going to stay here?
My mother-in-law said bluntly to me as I was doing housework. I was puzzled, not understanding the meaning of her words. But she continued without mercy.
Didn't you hear? I asked, how long you're going to stay?
Donna, what do you mean by how long am I going to stay?
I'm just saying, you're in my way if you stay here any longer. Get the hell out of our house.
My sister-in-law is giggling beside my mother-in-law. Seeing them, my anger finally exploded. Who in the world do you think you are? Who do you think built this house? Okay, if you insist, I have an idea. They must have thought I'd be depressed. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law have a look of triumph on their faces. I gave them the biggest smile I could muster. My name is Natalie, 30 years old. I work for a big insurance company. I got married 2 years ago. I live with my husband Kurt and my mother-in-law. When we first got married, my husband and I lived together in an apartment. But one day, after about a year of such a life, my father-in-law passed away. Inevitably, my mother-in-law was left alone in the family home. The day after my father-in-law's funeral, my mother-in-law came to our apartment and said to my husband,
Kurt, I don't feel safe to live alone. Let's move in together.
Mom, what are you saying out of the blue?
It's not out of the blue. I've been thinking about it for a long time. If I'm alone, you're the only one I can count on.
Wait a minute. You have sis too, right?
She's already married and moved out. And they live too far away. I want to stay here.
But that doesn't mean...
He looked at me with a troubled expression. It was too sudden a turn of events for me to understand. The sis he refers to is my sister-in-law Gladys. Gladys was married before us, has no children, and now lives far away from us due to her husband's job. I have met her only once, but she's not my favorite type of person. My husband told me that my mother-in-law has always loved my sister-in-law very much, but he doesn't like her because he grew up feeling the difference in affection towards him and his sister. That is why he thought that his mom was more suitable to live with his sister. However, my mother-in-law said to my bewildered husband without mercy,
Kurt, why can't you be nice when your own mother is so lonely and in trouble? Are you still my son?
You know, I'm just having a hard time with this out of the blue. I live with Natalie now, and the size of the condo.
Then let's build a house. You said before that you wanted to buy a house as soon as possible.
No, we did, but not so suddenly.
You said you went to see a model home not too long ago. That means you're starting to think about a home.
That's...
My mother-in-law, perhaps fed up with my husband's faltering attitude, turned her attention to me. My mother-in-law looked at me with a glare and said in a surprisingly innocent manner,
Hey, don't you think so too, Natalie? It's not normal to leave an elderly person like me alone, is it?
What? Well, I'm sure I'd be worried if something happened to you.
Right? I know. Oh God, I knew Natalie would understand.
No, it's just that I can sympathize a little.
I'm glad you have a kind wife like Natalie, Kurt. Well, let's get started on the house. I will leave it to you, okay?
My mother-in-law left with these words, humming a song with her light steps. In the room where my mother-in-law had disappeared, all that remained was a loud sigh from my husband and I.
That's not good. What should we do?
Even though my husband would start to put his hands over his head, I can't help but understand what my mother-in-law says. If something happens to my mother-in-law, we can't rush to her right away in our current situation. and my husband probably can say no clearly because of this concern. I can understand why he might feel uncomfortable to ask his sister, who lives far away. I turned again to my husband, who was wondering what to do. You know, Kurt, about what your mother said, maybe you should let her move in with us.
Are you serious? You said before you didn't really want to live together with her.
I was thinking that, but I don't want anything to happen to your mom if she gets separated from you.
But...
So I was thinking, what about a duplex?
A duplex?
My husband looked at me curiously, and I nodded my head. With 2 houses, our living spaces are separated, so we don't have to interfere with each other so much. On the other hand, since they're on the same site, if something happens, we can get to her as soon as possible. I thought this would be the best way to live with my mother-in-law without stress. My husband thought about it for a while, and then his expression softened as he said,
That might be a good idea indeed.
I guess he was worried about both my mother-in-law and me in his own way. If so, all I have to do is to accept my mother-in-law. It might require some patience, but if it would help my husband and my mother-in-law to have a stable life, then there's nothing better than that. A week later, my husband and I went to see her. After we were shown into the living room, my husband immediately started the conversation.
Mom, we were thinking, how about you and us live together in a duplex?
A duplex? You mean you guys will build it for us?
Well, we don't have much in savings. All I want you to do is pay for the demolition of your house. Then we will build a duplex here.
That's a good idea. That way I won't have to worry so much.
I'm sure we can handle anything that comes up. I guess that's fine then.
Yeah, I knew you and your wife would make a good choice. Thank you.
My mother-in-law looked at us with a big smile. Of course, a duplex is more expensive and more difficult to maintain than a regular house, but it is for the family of a loved one. My husband works for a company, and to be frank, my salary is higher than his. Now, we will have to pay our mortgage, plus living expenses for my mother-in-law, so our expenses will increase. I'm going to keep my head down and put more effort into my work. That's what I thought. A year later, our dream house was completed in the place where my parents-in-law's house was demolished. It was a little different from the image I had in my mind at first, but the completion of our little castle gave us a lot of joy. On the day of the handover, my mother-in-law showed up and looked around the house and exclaimed with joy,
"It's bigger than I thought it would be. It looks so comfortable to live in. I'm so happy to live in a place like this for the rest of my life."
She looked at the house happily, and I couldn't help but smile. When I was asked to live together with my mother-in-law, I was not sure what to do, but seeing her happy like this now makes me glad that I made the decision. But at that time, I didn't realize it yet. Even though I have come to live with my mother-in-law, we do not see each other very often because we live in a duplex. However, only at mealtime, she would come to our space and eat my cooking.
"Hey, Natalie, I think the seasoning is a little light today."
Is that so? I'm sorry.
"You should at least season it a bit more. You've been married a while."
Of course, I'm sorry. I will be careful next time.
"That's because you're working all the time. A woman should be a stay-at-home mom."
My mother-in-law always complains like this, and it makes the atmosphere at the table worse. My husband gives her a warning each time, but it doesn't seem to have an effect on her mind. My mother-in-law does not understand the nature of my work very well, and she often disrespects me in this way. The only reason we are able to live in this house is because my husband and I are working. I feel uncomfortable to hear her talk like this, even though I'm converting all of her living expenses. I found myself becoming a little cold toward my mother-in-law. Then one day, when I came home from work, I heard some laughter coming from my mother-in-law's room. At first, I thought it was a friend of my mother-in-law's visiting, but the voice was too young for that. I suddenly realized that the voice sounded familiar. This voice, could it be Gladys? However, I have to prepare dinner first. As I was putting dinner on the table in time for my husband's return, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed up.
Natalie, the food is already cooked.
Gladys, my sister-in-law said to me firmly.
Hey, there's only enough dinner for 3.
I'm sorry. It's always been for Donna, Kurt, and me.
Huh, don't make excuses for me. I'm hungry too.
Okay, I will get you one right away.
That's enough. Just eat Natalie's portion.
My sister-in-law took her seat with my mother-in-law and started to eat without saying their thanks. She only complained about the seasoning of my food as she moved her utensils around. Of course, I didn't feel good, but this was the second time I met Gladys. There was no way I could talk back to her. I endured this for a while, and then my husband came home. Seeing my sister-in-law eating mindlessly, my husband raised his voice.
Hey sis, that's Natalie's seat. Why are you sitting there eating?
Hey Kurt, you're still the same old dude.
Answer my question. Where's your husband?
I divorced him, so I'm moving in today. His mouth dropped open at such a sudden statement. As if to push him into a corner, his sister continued mercilessly.
Since I came back from a divorce, it is natural for me to live with my parents, right?
Live with your parents? This is our house now.
This used to be our parents' house. My mom lives here too, so this is still my parents' house.
Don't talk to me like that. Say something, Mom.
My husband turns red and yells at her, but my mother-in-law just looks at him like he's an idiot. In the end, my sister-in-law did not listen to him and did not leave the house. 1 week later, on this day, I had a day off from work, so my husband and I decided to start doing housework in the morning. Since the arrival of my sister-in-law, I have not visited my mother-in-law's room even once. However, even if we don't show up, she always comes to our room when we eat. My husband and I have not been able to establish a relationship with them. What should we do from now on? While I was doing housework, the door leading the front door opened, and my mother-in-law appeared.
Hey, how long are you going to stay here?
She bluntly said to me as I was doing the housework. When I was at a loss for the meaning of her words, she continued without mercy.
Didn't you hear what I said? I asked you how long you're going to stay.
Donna? What do you mean, how long am I going to stay?
Exactly what I said. I'm telling you, you can't stay here any longer. Get the hell out of our house.
Get out? What are you talking about?
This was my father's land. If you put up a house here, it's practically my mother's house. So you get out.
Then they giggled among themselves. Seeing them, my anger finally exploded. Who in the world do you think you are? Who do you think built this house? Okay, I have my own ideas. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law had a look of triumph on their faces, as if they thought I would be depressed. I gave them a big smile. What? Are you sure you want me to leave? Perhaps it wasn't an unexpected answer, but the expression on the faces of my sister-in-law and mother-in-law hardened. Still, Donna tried her best to keep her composure and talked forcefully.
What are you talking about? Are we sure? You're the one who should be kicked out of the house.
Okay, I wonder what happens then. Donna, do you understand? You know what will happen if we leave now.
Don't get me wrong. You're the only one we asked to leave. Cart needs to stay here in our money.
What are you going to do, Cart? Apparently, they were unaware of my husband's presence. They turned pale when he emerged from the shadows of the kitchen.
Hey, wait, Cart, you're here? If you're here, just say so.
My sister-in-law yelled at him, and my husband gave her a cold stare.
I was just hiding because I didn't want to talk to you. Just when I wondered what you were going to say. What the hell are you talking about? Telling Natalie to get out of here.
We were only talking to Natalie. We weren't talking about you, did we?
Okay. We'll leave as you wish. That should be fine, right?
My sister-in-law bit her lip in the frustration. But finally she said,
Get out of here, both of you.
She went back to her room with my mother-in-law. My husband and I immediately started moving. We temporarily rented an apartment within commuting distance of each other's office and moved in a few days later. At the same time, we decided to sell the duplex. We decided to have a real estate agent list the property with an appraisal when my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were out of town. The buyer was quickly found, partly because the house was newly built. So we went to visit them for the first time in a while. When my mother-in-law saw us, she said,
What do you want now?
Faking a smile. She probably did not realize the situation they were in yet. Why my sister-in-law was so proud of her victory. I told her clearly, I'm sorry, but you have to leave this house by the end of this month.
What are you talking about out the blue? You're the one who left.
The buyer's been found for this house.
Huh? Buyer?
So you can't live here anymore. Can you leave now? Seeing my serious face, she must have realized I wasn't joking. My mother-in-law immediately tried to turn the tables on me with a tight expression on her face.
Natalie, what's wrong with you all of a sudden? If you wanted to stay here so badly, it's not too late.
What are you talking about? Why would I want to live with you people? We were so worried about you that we decided to build a duplex. But you wanted the house so you could live with Gladys. Now that we know what you were up to, we've made up our minds.
I won't let you do what you want anymore. Get the hell out of here.
When I yelled at them, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law panicked. After that, though, they refused to leave the house. And finally, they were ordered to leave the house by the contractor. My husband and I had no choice but to go to the house and remove all their belongings. They had nowhere to go, and after staying at the hostel for a few days, they moved into the house of my mother-in-law's brother and his wife. Her brother seems to be a strict man, and after hearing what happened, he turned them away at the door. As a result, my sister-in-law started working at the nightclub, and my mother-in-law started working part-time. They are now blaming each other, and there are complaints about their yelling at night. On the other hand, my husband and I are happy to announce that we were expecting our first child. We are now looking for a new place to live for the sake of our newborn child. Even if it's a family member of someone you love, you don't have to sacrifice everything for them. On the other hand, even complete strangers can become lifelong friends by having a good relationship. I hope to build a better relationship with them.